That's
Cool.
okay. That's okay. Yeah, okay, perfect. Now that everyone's here, we can get started anyway. So yeah, just to say, as I said, Rob, Leisha, and Nicola were all in. They all did the Bachelor's of Architecture, and they graduated from my year in third year. And then, respectively, Leisha went on to study design and visual communications in NCAD. Nicola studies broadcast production in IADT, and Rob is working as a carpentry apprentice. Am I right? In Germany.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Nicola is going to speak a bit first on her course, and she's going to show us some work that she's done, and then I think Leisha is the same, and then Rob, you can take over at the end. That's okay. And just to say, if anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat, and hopefully we'll have a bit of time to talk about it at the end. That's all good. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Can I share my screen?
yeah, over to you, Nicola. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, can you see that all okay?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay. So yeah, as Owen said, I'm going to kind of talk about going from architecture to broadcast production, what led me into it, what it's like, and hopefully shed some light on it. So yeah, I thought I'd start off with a photo of me in the studio in first year. So from the get-go, I loved being in a creative space surrounded by lots of wonderful people who have become really close friends, sitting down at desks, discussing things, making creative projects, developing it from an initial idea to a finished project. And that creative space was just really exciting and a brilliant start. Having left school, I wasn't really sure exactly why I was going into architecture, but I chose it. And yeah, but there was ups and downs, but from the start there was a lot of like really positive things that I really liked. In terms of things I made, it became very apparent that I was quite poor at a lot of the technical stuff, but I loved the more artistic side of things. So working with different media and different colors and watercolors and photography and making models and doing lots of different things with those. And that was really fun. And there was lots of brilliant tutors like St. John Walsh, and in third year, Alice Clancy ran a photography module with us. And I loved the aspect of, you know, using different media to make films and photos. And while I didn't feel so confident in the technical stuff, I loved storytelling and creativity. And I suppose that was kind of always going on throughout my time. And even we had a fish project in third year, and I really enjoyed with all my projects I started, I'd always go out to visit maybe a shop, if we were in this case a fish shop, and I loved talking to people, interviewing them, documenting it, you know, photographing it, and recording my experiences. And yeah, I still throughout architecture, while I was like definitely going to give it a go, when I left I was really unsure as to what I was, where I was going with it. And yeah, it was a bit of a kind of confusing experience. But in third year, I also started sort of writing poetry, and I became really inspired by poetry and the story that it told. And I found this poem called The Orange, and I'm going to just read it, I suppose. That'd be a nice thing to do. So at lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters and I had a half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do. Just lately, the shopping, a walk in the park. This is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all my jobs on my list and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you. I'm glad I exist. And that really inspired me to make the project that you see on the other side, which is my fish market, which, like, once again had absolutely no technical, like, it was really, it wouldn't have stood up, it wouldn't have worked. But I really liked the idea of developing this sort of spiritual place where people would slow down and weave in and out and watch fish being sacrificed on these altars in this quasi-religious space with light cascading down. And I loved getting up and telling the tutors and my classmates in that presentation and telling a story. And I have been reflecting on this since, and yeah, thinking about how much I enjoyed that experience. But I suppose the poem also reminds me of Richview and spending time with friends and enjoying simple things. This is Rob brought his dog in first year. So that's a shout out to Millie. But like just the really simple things, eating food around the table with others, being curious about the world, having conversations. And it was a really rich experience, which I don't think you get in many other courses. And it was really meaningful. So yeah, that was another thing that sort of inspired me, going on trips, traveling. This is us dancing in Porto, in Portugal. And then this is Leisha and I, and when we came back from a trip in first year, there was right as we went through Dublin Airport, when we came back from traveling, we saw this aggressively large image of O'Donnell and Toomey, architect in Dublin Airport, which I remember we were like, will we ever be able to do this? This is so hard. But it was almost as if there's these like life, huge figures saying, yes, you can do it, keep going. So I thought that was funny. But in my year out, I did lots of different things, but it all sort of started, I went to a place called Summerhill, which is a really amazing place in Edinburgh. It's an arts centre, but it's like the Barbican of Scotland. They do lots of really amazing creative shows, stuff that's really groundbreaking. And I spent lots of time in the courtyard. There was a central space, like speaking about architecture, and being surrounded by lots of people, and it was a place where you had lots of conversations, told lots of stories, stayed up all night dancing, having a drink with others, like just having a lovely time and seeing shows. And then in time off, with all the new friends I'd made, going on adventures. But a lot of people I was around were actually involved in broadcasting, and they had done work for like the BBC or had their own radio shows. And I, through talking with them about my experiences in architecture, I started to talk a lot about what I had enjoyed in architecture, and I was reflecting on all of those experiences I've been sharing with you. And yeah, that was really nice, like really lovely time. And then my friend Kirsty made this radio show, which it was like a mix of poetry and prose, and it was like a memory of all of our experiences. It captured the story of our friendship and all of the experiences we had together in Edinburgh. And I went to Body and Soul when I came home, and it was lashing rain one night, but I was in a tent and the show was broadcast live, and I lay down in my tent and I was listening to it using hotspot on my phone. But it was a really like beautiful, meaningful experience, and I saw the power of stories, and it really connected with me. So I sort of had in mind, maybe that's something I might be interested in. And also, as I said, like in architecture, I was always listening to media, like podcasts, watching things, and just really enjoying that whole experience. And then towards the end of my year, I was wondering what to do next. And it almost happened randomly, like it was really last minute, but I sort of found this course online, broadcast production. But it's funny because actually the NFS building in IADT, which is where the broadcasting course is based, was actually designed by the last tutor I had in architecture school. So that was a nice transition. But yeah, it happened a bit accidentally, but also based on all the experiences I had and all of the love I developed for like storytelling and stuff. I thought it's something I might really like. And they had this quote when I came in, which said, curious collaborators and critical optimists, tech-savvy innovators, makers, storytellers, and creators. And I was like, this sounds cool. I like the sound of this. And it also reminded me a bit of architecture. And I thought, maybe this could be really good. But in terms of what I do on the course, so I've been doing it since September. There's a lot of research and writing. So I did a research project all about eco-villages. I asked the question, what do the eco-village movement, how, what effect does it have, and how does it create like a sustainable environment? And the research project then kind of feeds into the fact that you might make a documentary about it or something. Then in terms of writing, we've been writing lots of scripts, voiceover things that will accompany images, which reminds me a lot of like standing up in architecture and describing your presentations. And also doing like research pieces for radio shows, just developing a lot of like really critical skills in research and writing. There's a lot of focus on like digital, because I suppose the world is changing, and even most people who are on this Zoom call will probably agree that they don't even watch TV. So in a traditional sense, you watch it on a play, on like a player or something, or on Netflix. But I got to do a really cool research project on Blue Planet and its effects through using digital media, and how it like had a really far reach and inspired people to kind of make global environmental change, which I really enjoyed that. I also did a project, I had to write an essay for a module called Changing Media Landscapes, where I looked at experimental audio practices. So looking at like the creative possibilities of podcasts versus radio, seeing what is more creative and what spaces allow for people to do things that are really exciting and groundbreaking and innovative. So that involved a lot of listening, a lot of reflecting, researching. So yeah, a lot of crossover with experiences in architecture, looking at precedents and things. And all of these different basic skills from the first semester have transferred into what I've been doing this semester, which is making projects. So we had a documentary film module. I had to, you know, do some, like, it was a whole process, just like the way in architecture, you look at precedents, you research it, you develop an idea, you pitch it, and then you go out, you film it, you interview people, and you come back and you reflect on it, you shape the story together and you edit it and add music and lots of different sound effects and weave it all together. So I made one about sea swimming, and I've made one about my aunt, which if we have time, I might share that later. We also have a module focused on radio and audio features. So I just made a podcast all about beekeeping, so feeding into my kind of interest with nature. Again, like I interviewed lots of people who are passionate about beekeeping, and I laid down a story on an editing track and brought lots of different people's stories about why they're passionate about bees and why bees are so critical, and then making a kind of a really natural soundscape and adding instrumental music, and that was really enjoyable. And last week and in the next few weeks, we are in studio, so we're doing live radio shows. So we're learning how to use desk operations, we're learning how to present, how to broadcast things, how to create content, where ideas come from, how you shape a show, and like, you know, picking music, really like fun, creative stuff. So it's been really nice. And then in the next few weeks, we're also operating a multi-camera studio. So we will be making live shows with my class of, there's 18 of us, and it's a really nice small class. We will be going in and each taking a like different role in the studio and filming a live show and broadcasting it, and working, you know, creatively as a team, which also reminds me a lot of architecture, being in a studio space and spending lots of time creatively around other people and making things. So that's really cool. And this all leads to, over the summer, I'll be making a major project. So I'll be probably, I haven't confirmed it just yet, but I'll be making a long form documentary based on like all the skills I've learned and bringing it all together. But something that really is funny on the course is like, I'm always almost used as like the base standard, in the sense that people are always like, oh, and can you believe it, Nicola studied architecture and she's doing this? But I always think architecture and broadcast production have a lot of overlap, and like primarily there's that thing of storytelling. All of the talks we go to, and every time we get up and present, we are telling stories about our work. We're using images to represent our ideas, to visualize things, and to try and help people to understand something and create a conversation. And you know, that is something that's just so exciting about architecture. But ultimately, the biggest crossover is, I think they both very much deal with what are called the 4 C's of education, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication, which are skills that are really, really important, and they're really valuable. And I've definitely like feel that that architectural education really strengthens the work I do and really makes me work well creatively. So I'm really grateful for that background, even though architecture was at times a really tough experience. It was also great, and I learned loads, and I feel it's really useful for what I do now. And I'm always drawing things, like even audio essays. I always find I almost with butter paper, I'll draw lots of ideas, and that's almost how I work now. I'm very used to, that's how I can get ideas out. And there's something, I suppose, of like, you kind of, in the same sense as architecture, you critically analyze a brief, you synthesize information, and you're working through a process to make things, from a creative idea to a finished resolution, you know, from coming up with an idea for a documentary to making it to delivering it in broadcast quality. It's just like architecture in many ways. But yeah, that's kind of, it's yeah, so I just kind of think it's really positive, and I think if somebody wanted to go do something else like broadcast production, I think there's a lot of really wonderful things about architecture which really help you. I don't know if we have time to show, I have a documentary I made. Owen, will we show it at the end perhaps, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, we can have a look at showing it at the end, yeah. And if we don't get to, I'll link it in the YouTube video description. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's really interesting that you found so much overlap between the two courses, because out of the three people here coming on, you would think that broadcast production would be the least similar to architecture, but yeah, it sounds like the creative process coming up with any project and stuff, it is lots of skills that you definitely learned in your undergrad, which you're now carrying with you, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, we might move on to Leisha now if you're ready. And then any questions for Nicola, you can put them in the chat and we can try to get them at the end.
Cool. Hello. I'll just share my screen and see. Where am I? Oh yeah, here. So it's really cool to first of all hear from Nicola, because I feel like you just never really get to know what your friends are even doing. So I definitely would recommend seeing a presentation of your friend's work. It just looked very really cool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Rob's work actually, because I actually know very little about that. But yeah, so my name's Leisha, obviously, and I'm doing an MA in design or communication design in NCAD. I only started in February, so I don't have a huge amount of work to show. But I thought I'd give like a quick overview of the course, and then kind of go into maybe what my thesis proposal is looking at. And yeah, I don't know how beneficial this will be, but hopefully someone out there will appreciate it. So is this going? Oh yeah, okay. So a quick background as to where I was. I graduated in 2018 and I went in to do a design internship in a set designer in Dublin. And we were working on the set design of Circle of Friends in the Gaiety Theatre. That was really interesting, and I definitely would recommend anyone who kind of is interested in maybe incorporating their technical skills from architecture. Like I would have been the same with Nicola. I wouldn't have exactly had the most technical head on me in architecture, but it's kind of interesting to see the kind of overlaps of how what your body of work that you have can kind of contribute to other design fields. And also it was really helpful to see what a freelance designer looks like. And yeah, that was very interesting. So currently I work as the art and design editor of the University Observer and the O2 magazine. And here's just some like examples of the spreads. Oh God, sorry. I hope my dog doesn't start throwing tantrums. Good girl. So yeah, and some illustrations that I've done on the side accompanying different articles. There's actually a good amount of architects working in the University Observer. Darren is the editor and she was in our year in college. And then Narina and Sinead are both photographers. So I definitely would recommend, you know, getting involved in as many different, you know, anything you're interested in. You know, it's kind of easy to overlook your other hobbies or overlook your other interests in architecture because it's such like an overwhelming course. So yeah, I definitely would recommend. Then this is just a quick overview of what the course looks like in NCAD. So design communications or communications design is really anything. The final proposal can be kind of, it can range from like events to like podcast talks, or there's been a couple of people who've done like festivals and stuff. So it's really cool. You don't really know what your end product will look like. So phase 1 is study and research. So that's the kind of phase I'm at the moment, where we're looking at theory and kind of exploring what your actual brief will look like. And then midway through, you establish an external partner. So that's really cool because the college pay for like an external design practitioner to give you 10 hours of tutorial work, which is class because you kind of get to see from the academic side with your tutors in NCAD, and then you get kind of a more of a practical approach as well, which is deadly. So these are just some of the examples of the work in previous students have done. So yeah, you have to have obviously a thesis question, and whatever design field you're in, you look at that through the means of how graphic design can contribute and positively impact whatever design field you're in. So there's 6 main kind of areas you can go into. So there's information design, campaigns, identity, promotion, education, exhibition and environmental design, and editorial design. So I won't obviously go into each of these students' work because A, I won't actually do them justice, and B, I think it'll just take up too long. So yeah, but if anyone's interested, I can send you on the presentation. So this is what I'm looking at the moment. How can communication design cultivate a sense of place within an individual, which in turn would encourage engagement and participation with their city's urban and architectural development. So yeah, when I was in architecture, I was interested in how people interacted with their spaces and their environments. And I was hugely interested in public space and how people kind of reclaim or claim the public space that they're in. So I'm looking at how graphic design or design communication can inform that. And here are just some examples of like the work that I'd be looking at doing. So enabling spaces, Studio Weave, it was a game for designers to communicate with the vulnerable people of Kilkenny, and translating their thoughts into the built environment. And they use that by like this game with grids and just kind of a visual representation more so to kind of speak and bridge the gap between architecture and the people. And then my Carlo was an Anne Mulrooney and Studio Weave collaboration, where they did cognitive mapping of Carlo. So it's kind of like how children perceived their environment and what was actually important for them in their environment. And they made a pamphlet about it, and they kind of just raised awareness more so about like what areas people are actually interested in and what areas of Carlow Town do people actually love. Then Alison Barnes is a designer over in England, and she's doing topophilia mapping. So she is looking at New Brasford in England, and there's a lot here of like this map here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's about people's memories and how they relate to their space. So it's really cool, and I'm really interested in looking at that. So where I'm at the moment is I'm really interested in how people identify with their environment. And as I said, I'm looking at like the gap between the designer and those that it's designed for. I don't think any design field, kind of what Nicola was saying, like I don't think any design field can be seen in complete isolation. And I think exploring different avenues and different lens that you can look at whatever design field you're in, say that's architecture, it can't hurt it to, you know, see it through different you know, different aspects and see how they all mix together. And yeah, at the moment I'm looking at, just continuing on. As I said, I'm sorry, I don't actually have anything to actually show because we're very much like at the beginning of this project. But I'm really interested in looking at the work of Robert Burke at the moment. He's a design fellow at UCD. But I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow to talk about the developments in Phibsborough and the student housing and the effect that that's having on the people and the communication between the people and the developers. And so, yeah, that's kind of it, to be honest. I don't have any documentary or anything like that to show, so I apologize, but yeah.
No, Alicia, that was really nice. It's actually I think your work like is still really architectural. So well, obviously you're still really interested in that, although you are studying visual communications now. And yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know you were pursuing that with Robert Burke either, and looking at that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. You know, it could go terribly wrong. But yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. We might take the opportunity at the minute to, I don't know if anyone has any questions for Nicola and Leisha.
I have a question for Nicola. How long is your course?
It is just over a year long. So it started in September, and it because of kind of COVID, it'll end at the end of September. So I'm making a big project over the summer. And I'm currently thinking of potentially focusing it on design. Somebody asked, what would be the name of your podcast? So I don't actually publish any of my things. I'm very shy, and I'm aware that I talk about the importance of digital platforms, but I am actually really wary of, I find social media really scary, but I very much through this course have found that I will need to start like publishing work and using social media and engaging digitally, even though that on a personal level I am not sure I feel so great about it, but but I probably will publish it at some point, so I'll let you know.
Watch this space.
Yeah, I have a question for Leisha as well. I always remember in second year, like we all did a really interesting semester in first semester of second year, and it was a very much like freeing experience where we were kind of we were able to sort of develop our own brief and come up with our own concept for something and do something that it wasn't graded. And do you think that was a really good experience for you, and do you think that sort of gave you a taste? I personally remember you did a lot of graphic design work for that project, and I really appreciated that time, and it was probably my favorite semester in architecture. But do you remember that, and do you feel it was a good time for you to try out graphic design and to be creative?
Was that the Cork?
Yeah, when we went to Cork, yeah,
definitely. I think like I'm not going to say that like throughout architecture I wasn't an outstanding student. I do think though that like I wish I did that more though. I wish I carried that on with other things. But I don't think it can hurt your project by incorporating different design fields. And yeah, definitely, that was brilliant. That whole year was class actually.
Yeah.
I feel
great.
Yeah, that was a really nice time. Nick has a question for Leisha and Nicola. How open were the professors in your courses to your design process brought from architecture education, and how much did you have to change your creative process to adapt to the new course? I just think like it's honestly all the same thing. Like I really do. Even I found it really difficult at the start of the year because I don't think we have a huge amount of experience writing essays in our undergraduate in architecture. But even like I actually couldn't write words when I started my course. Like I physically couldn't type. It was really challenging. But I actually got out. I'll actually show you. I have this massive kind of A3 notebook, and I use it. I used to use it in architecture, and I still use it now. And I draw out essay ideas, and I mind map it, and I physically draw blocks and structure it. And that's kind of what I did in architecture as well. And the same with like making documentaries. It's a little bit different in the term. I think there's a stronger aspect of storytelling. Architecture is more grounded in like technical things. So you're physically figuring out how to build a structure, how to build a building, but you're just using like a different grammar or a different language to build something else. So you're building a documentary, you're building an audio feature, you're building a television show, and you're learning it. It's like learning a new language. And I did find that really hard at first. My brain, as I said, like I couldn't get things out, but through sort of using old processes of like drawing and also talking loads. My sister, who I think is here, Laura, who also did architecture with me, is like so sick of me talking to her about my projects. Like I'm very dependent of having like a conversation with someone, of having a creative conversation with somebody, because I'm so used to that in architecture. Every time you do have like that really strong support from tutors who sit down with you and you talk through a project and come up with ideas. And I often found like I was really dragging a lot out of them. It was probably exhausting dealing with me, because I really enjoy that process, and that's also another way of working things out. But maybe what would you have to say about that, Leisha?
Well, I think you put it so eloquently. I don't know if I can add anything. It was similar to my course. Like, it's a different. Definitely, the writing was different. But I felt like it's kind of held in high esteem, having done an architecture degree. I don't know if you felt like that. But yeah, it's much of the same kind of process of designing. You are doing the same.
Yeah.
I felt actually that my tutors were kind of like, take a step back, like you don't need to produce something so quickly. Like the others say, there's other people who have come in from doing like graphic design, mainly graphic design, or just like there's other set designers in the place as well. Yeah, that there's definitely an element of like slowing down the process of designing, because I feel that in architecture in college it would have been kind of something quickly so that you can kind of rework it. There's a lot more emphasis put on the kind of the process of how you come into your first idea even.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that process is really important. Like I would see maybe some people who have done like just an essay writing course, they don't like look at the briefs as deeply, and they don't interrogate it as much and work through the process of like iteration and drawing over your project and not starting again, but constantly like developing it and working it along from stage to stage. Whereas maybe some people who come from a different background have like wonderful skills as well, but their approach will be very much like, okay, this is the brief and I'm going to make this and that's done. Whereas like maybe coming from an architecture background, you think along an entire process and you're constantly, I find that really useful actually when you film a documentary and you're filming, when you come back with all your footage, you have an idea and you've planned out what the story is going to be and you've planned out what your photography looks like and you have a very strong idea of what it is. But then when you actually sit down to the drawing board, you, I suppose, have to like completely change it or completely develop it to make it work on screen and to make people understand it. And that reminds me so much of the architectural process. So yeah.
Question from Laura in the chat here, about what are your hopes, ambitions, or I don't know, plans after your courses, if you know.
I don't really know, Laura. No. I'm just kind of winging it, to be honest. I'd be lying if I said I had a particular aim at the end of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually do. I just feel really like deeply passionate. I'm so surprised that the course has like kind of gone really well. Like I wasn't expecting to get so much out of it. But I just absolutely kind of obsessed with like storytelling in all its forms, producing content, stuff that in particular is like makes a difference or starts a conversation. And I've been trying to get involved in bits of journalism. So actually for the University Observer, I've also been writing a bit this year. That's been really nice. Something that really interests me at the moment is multimedia journalism in terms of like papers like The Guardian in the UK. They're making like content that is adapting and is very much being shaped by like how we all consume media. So a lot of us wouldn't have the time to like sit down with a printed newspaper and read through like lots of articles. So they're very much like coming up with ideas of writing a feature that also has a video documentary, and also has maybe an audio podcast or an interview. And I think through multimedia content, you get a closer insight into like the human experience and into human stories than you would from traditional print. And I think that's really cool. And it serves a purpose in the sense that words and multimedia offers like different things. So I'm really interested by that at the moment, but also just generally production, making documentaries, audio, just being creative and making things. So so that's kind of what I'm interested in. But yeah, it's just been nice just to immerse yourself in something for a year and see where that takes you and learn along the way and meet new people. It's been really nice.
Sorry, I'm just saying here as well, actually, Rob is actually not going to be able to come on in the end. I think he had really poor internet connection in his workshop, and he couldn't really do anything to avoid that. But I'm putting his email address in the chat here. So Rob is working as a carpentry apprentice in Germany, and it would have been really good to hear about how he finds that after studying architecture. I was really looking forward to that, but unfortunately he's not going to be able to come on and present. But if that's something that anyone here is interested in, you can give him an email on his address there pasted in the chat, and any questions would be welcome. But yeah, no, thanks a lot for coming on, Laoise and Nicola. That was both really interesting, both of you. If anyone's any more questions, now might be a good time to, I suppose, do either of you ever, particularly Laoise, I'd have to say, see yourself moving back towards architecture, or do you see yourself ever maybe working in architecture in the future? I mean, even what you're doing now, you're not very far from it.
Yeah, no, I definitely would. I definitely would. I think I just really, really wanted to take some time off and explore different areas of design that I'd be interested in. I'm in no rush. I don't really feel, I mean, obviously I'm saying that and like it's a very long course and to become a part 3 architect, but I don't know, I'm just kind of enjoying doing something, well, not completely different, but quite different. And it'll be interesting to see how that can inform then when I go back to college. And yeah, no, I definitely do see myself going back eventually, or in some form. I think I'll always have a toe dipped in the water of architecture, was what I'd say. So yeah. What about you, Nicola?
Yeah, I always feel like I haven't actually like fully left it. Like I think it'll always be a part of what I do, and I feel really passionate about it. I love reading about it. I like found myself in the design store in Dublin city centre last year and like really overstayed my welcome just reading through architecture books. I am like really interested in it and I do like it a lot. I've just sort of been led into a different area, but as you say, I think I'll always want to keep my toe in the door just to keep it going. But yeah, I do really like it.
Water.
Yeah, toe in the water, as you said, and yeah, and keep it going, and yeah, being kind of inspired by it.
Could I ask a question? I'm really sorry I missed you almost. Well, I thought there was going to be 3 presentations, so I would see at least some of them. But in the end, I just got the tail end of Laoise's question. So maybe my question is more about actually, and funnily enough, I was at an event to do with the new Bauhaus, this new initiative about, European initiative about re-invoking the spirit of the Bauhaus, and it was making me think about the way most university courses at the moment, or certainly a lot of them, you go from school where you typically will be taking, 6, 7, 8 subjects, and then you're suddenly you're doing one all in, albeit lots of different bits to it. Um, and now you guys are doing things which are related or somewhat related but different, and you sort of think, is it? And then I mean, I assume a lot of people would have many different avenues that they might think about going down at the time of leaving school, but you're required to choose. And I just wonder if, then you think about the Bauhaus, where the teaching spanned across drawing, painting, model making, architecture. There was a sort of broad spectrum of different activities you were involved in. I mean, do you think, I mean, it's hard to say, but do you think that there might be benefits to trying to being able to be exposed to quite a lot of different kinds of activities, maybe from documentary making to communication design to building design? Or do you think that it's better to have gone through something quite intense?
Yeah, I do think it wasn't, it was intense, but I actually do think we got to do lots of different things. Like I think I made a number of short films during it. There's opportunities to get involved in things like when Chloe Lowe was here, she ran the gender and architecture agenda thing. There was like student curators. There's opportunities there. Even Leisha, talking about the University Observer. I know Darren in our year was really involved in that. And then also like during the summers, you have all your time off. I think it's really important to not work in architecture in your early years off in your summer, because I still think you're at such an early point, and to experience different things and work in a shop or do something totally different. I got involved in lots of stuff during the summer, or traveled or went to festivals and things, and that really inspired me. But yeah, I do think the architectural education is actually broad. People always think it's really, streamlined, but you get a taste of so many different things, and you have a really good understanding of the arts and of creativity and making things, and you do bits of writing and photography, and I think it's kind of up to the student to make that happen. But yeah, I do think it's an interesting point. Like maybe education should, like, I found in first year of architecture, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I have no idea if I want to do this. And I was always questioning it throughout it. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing for me. But I think I might have had that problem in any course, that we are like only 18 when we go into college. And that is a really young point in your life to make that decision. And yeah, and like, how on earth are you supposed to know? You haven't experienced very much in the world. So yeah, it is good to experience lots of different things, as you're suggesting.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree as well. I think although architecture, you're able to do so many different, there's so many areas you can explore through, but I think when you're in the course, it's so intense that it can be overwhelming, that you don't often get a chance to kind of delve into, say photography, or what I mean, it's kind of like on the side, and then the actual project or your actual architecture kind of takes hold, which is obviously it's a course for architecture, so what do you expect? But yeah, no, it's interesting to even just consider like incorporating other fields into it. I do agree with Nicola. It's definitely up to wherever the individual student, or what the individual student is interested in. And that often would lead to, like, I remember, Nicola, that project that you did with the orange, or you did the poem, that did really well. Like, you had a really rich project from that. And like, you were exploring your theme through different angles and with other medias and stuff. So that's yeah, it's good. It definitely should be like encouraged, and yeah, it's class.
Yeah. Laura has one final question. What is the best thing you have both taken away from your Richie days? Leisha, what would you say?
Oh, friendship, definitely.
That too, yeah.
Oh no, but like, I actually do really mean that. I think like the sense of community that you actually have from Richview, and I feel really bad the photo that's up on the Instagram was me, Rob, and Nicola in first year. And I'm sure that week alone, I went through an array of emotions of being angry and disappointed, but like you always felt like supported, and you always felt like it really added to my education was actually like the community aspect. I would say was just vital for it.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad for first years at the moment who only see people on Zoom. And I actually don't know how they manage to do that from their bedroom. So I've huge admiration for anyone that's doing that. But yeah, no, I would definitely say, and of course, like critical thinking and the design and everything like that. But I definitely would say the community and yeah, my friends from architecture. What about you, Nicola?
Yeah, similar things. Like it's obviously great for creative thinking. You learn how to work really hard. You learn how to make things. That's really great. But I do remember sitting in a Japanese restaurant with a few friends who were all here. And when we had our time off and our year out, and we were all laughing away about our years in Richview, and I was like, this is everything. It's so nice. So that means a lot, and that's the best thing, yes, is those friendships and that connection to other people, which made just the experience so rich, and you learn so much from lots of different aspects of life, from people of all ages and stages and backgrounds, and we all came together, and yeah, it was just really magical. So that was great.